we speak, we rise.
This is a story about a girl who stood against all odds and made history. My name is Aaliyah Monroe, and this is how I went from being told I didn't belong anywhere to wearing a crown that proved I belonged everywhere. That day is still fresh in my memory. The crown weighed exactly 2 pounds and 3 ounces. But in that moment, standing under those blinding stage lights, it felt like it carried the weight of 2 states, 3 generations, and every cruel word that had tried to define me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from nervousness. That had burned away somewhere between the swimsuit competition and the final question. This was something else. Something that felt like my grandmother's hands trembling as she stirred her morning coffee in our kitchen in the 9th Ward, telling me stories about being called too. This, or not enough, that her whole life. The applause was deafening, but all I could hear was silence. The silence from 3 months ago when I walked away from everything I'd worked for. The silence in the group chat that used to blow up my phone. The silence from people who said they loved me but couldn't stand with me when the cameras turned on meant. Miss USA South Region, first runner-up at Miss USA, and before that, Miss Louisiana 2024. But here's what nobody tells you about winning. When you've been told you don't belong anywhere, even victory feels like you're standing on borrowed ground. I caught my father's eye in the 3rd row. He was crying, and my daddy never cries. Next to him, my mother had her hand over her mouth. I knew she was praying in Spanish the way she does when her English can't hold all her feelings. Behind them, I could see my grandmother, standing up even though her knees hurt, clapping so hard I was worried about her arthritis. The crown caught the light, sending little rainbows across the stage. For a second, I was 7 years old again, sitting in my grandmother's beauty shop in Atlanta, watching her put hot combs through women's hair while they talked about everything. Their dreams, their heartbreaks, their children, their fights with the world. She used to let me play with the old pageant crown she kept on a shelf. A crown from some local competition back in 1968 that she never talked about much, except to say, "Baby girl, they tried to take this from me too." But I wore it anyway. How did I get here? How does a girl who was born in Atlanta, who grew up eating her grandmother's Sunday collard greens and her mother's mango, who learned to dance bachata and step at the same cookout, who was told she was too much of everything and not enough of anything? How does that girl end up here? How does someone go from being called an outsider in the state she called home to wearing a crown that represents a whole region? The answer wasn't simple. It never is when your story is written in 2 languages, 3 area codes, and a lifetime of people asking, "But where are you really from?" But standing there, feeling that crown settle into my hair that was natural and coiled and unapologetically mine, I realized something. I didn't need to belong to one place. I needed to belong to myself. And maybe, just maybe, that was the whole point all along. Let me take you back to where this really started. Not 3 months ago when everything exploded. Further back, to the place that made me, Atlanta, Georgia. Specifically, the West Side, where my grandmother, Mama Rose, owned Rose's Beauty and Grace for 43 years. That shop was more than a business. It was a sanctuary. A place where Black women came to be seen, to be heard, to let their guard down. I grew up in that shop. While other kids had playgrounds, I had the smell of hair oil and the sound of women's laughter. While other kids learned their ABCs, I learned that every woman who sat in those chairs carried a story, and every story mattered. My father, Marcus, was from New Orleans originally. 9th Ward, born and raised. He moved to Atlanta for college at Morehouse and never left. Well, not permanently. But New Orleans never left him. You could hear it in how he talked, see how he moved, taste it in the gumbo he made every Sunday after church. He worked as a high school history teacher, and he had this way of making every lesson feel personal. Like history wasn't something dead in a book, but something alive in our blood. My mother, Carmen, came from the Dominican Republic when she was 19. She met my father at a community center where she was taking English classes and he was volunteering as a tutor. She worked as a nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital, pulling double shifts, sending money back home to her family. Speaking Spanish to me when she was tired because that's when the English felt too heavy. I was their miracle, they said, born after years of trying, arriving in the middle of a thunderstorm so loud it knocked out power to half the city. Mama Rose said I came in making noise and never stopped. Growing up mixed, Black and Latina, Southern and Caribbean, Atlanta and New Orleans, I learned early that I was always going to be explaining myself. At school, Black kids sometimes said I talked white because I got good grades. Dominican kids at my mother's church said I wasn't Latina enough because my Spanish had an accent. And white people? They just seemed confused about what box to put me in. But in Mama Rose's shop, I was whole. The women there loved all of me. They'd switch from English to Spanish to the kind of Black Southern vernacular that felt like music. They celebrated when I made the honor roll. Celebrated when I learned to make my mother's tres leches cake. Celebrated when I joined the step team at my school. The dream to compete in pageants started when I was 16. I was watching Miss America with Mama Rose, and I said something casual like, "I could do that." She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Baby, you could do more than that. You could change what that looks like." So I started competing. Local pageants first. Little titles that didn't mean much, except they meant everything to me. I worked 3 jobs to pay for gowns and coaching. Serving tables at a soul food restaurant, doing hair at Mama Rose's shop on weekends, and tutoring kids in my neighborhood. I put myself through college at Spelman, studying communications and sociology. I wanted to understand how stories get told, and more importantly, who gets to tell them. My thesis was on representation in media and how it shapes identity formation in young Black girls. By the time I graduated in 2023, I had a plan. I was going to compete for Miss Georgia 2024. I was going to win. And I was going to use that platform to talk about girls like me. Girls who didn't fit into neat boxes. Girls who were told they were too much or not enough. Girls who needed to see someone who looked like them wearing a crown. I spent a year preparing, saved every penny, lost weight, gained it back, lost it again. Not because anyone told me to, but because I wanted to feel strong. I practiced my walk in Mama Rose's shop after hours. The old wooden floors creak under my heels. My mother helped me rehearse my interview questions, pushing me to think deeper, to speak from my heart. My father quizzed me on current events, on Georgia history, on politics. The thing I was most proud of? My platform. I called it Crowns for All, celebrating identity beyond borders. I wanted to work with young girls in immigrant communities and in the Black community, helping them see that their mixed identities weren't confusing. They were superpowers. I had this vision. I'd win Miss Georgia, go to Miss USA, and maybe, just maybe, I'd change something. Make space for girls who look like me. Show them that belonging wasn't about fitting in. It was about standing up. The application for Miss Georgia went in on January 15th, 2024. I remember the date because it was also my grandmother's birthday. She was turning 75. And when I told her I'd submitted my application, she pulled me close and whispered, "You're going to make them remember us." 2 weeks later, I got the email. I was accepted as a contestant for Miss Georgia 2024. The competition was set for June. I had 5 months to prepare, to fundraise, to get ready for the biggest moment of my life. I remember standing in Mama Rose's shop the day I got that email, and she grabbed my face in both her hands, hands that had styled thousands of heads of hair, hands that had held me when I cried, hands that had worked their whole life to build something beautiful. "Aaliyah," she said, "you remember this. No matter what happens, you already belong. You hear me? You already belong." I wish I had held on to those words tighter, because 5 months later, everything I'd built came crashing down. And I learned that sometimes the hardest fights aren't about winning a crown. They're about fighting for your right to even compete for it. The first attack came on a Tuesday. I was at work. I'd taken a part-time position at a community center in Atlanta, running after-school programs for kids, when my phone started buzzing. Not just buzzing, exploding. Text messages, Instagram notifications, Twitter mentions, Facebook messages. At first, I thought maybe I'd won some kind of preliminary award or gotten featured somewhere. But then I started reading the messages. "Go back to where you came from. You're not really from Georgia. Fraud. Fake. My hands went cold. I opened Twitter and saw it, a thread that had been posted by an account I'd never heard of. The thread had photos of me, screenshots of my application, and a long caption questioning my eligibility to compete for Miss Georgia. The main accusation? That I wasn't a real Georgia resident because my father was from Louisiana and my mother was an immigrant. The thread claimed that there were irregularities in my documentation. My mother's citizenship status when I was born was questionable, and that I was somehow gaming the system to compete in a state I didn't really belong to. It was insane. I was born at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. I grew up in Atlanta. I went to school in Atlanta. I went to college in Atlanta. My birth certificate said Atlanta. My driver's license said Atlanta. My voter registration said Atlanta, but none of that mattered to the thread, which was being shared and retweeted thousands of times. People I'd never met were calling me a liar, saying I was trying to steal opportunities from real Georgia girls, demanding that the Miss Georgia organization investigate me. I called my parents. My voice is shaking. My mother was furious, ready to fight. My father was quiet, which scared me more because my father was never quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy. "Baby girl," he said, "I've seen this before. When they can't beat you fair, they try to disqualify you." The Miss Georgia organization released a statement saying they were looking into the matter, not defending me, not shutting down the lies, just looking into it. That's when I knew I was in trouble. The next week was a nightmare. Every day brought new accusations, new threads, new lies. Someone claimed my mother had used fraudulent documents to immigrate. A complete lie. Someone else claimed my father wasn't really my father, that I was adopted and hiding it. Another lie. Someone started a petition to have me removed from the competition. The other contestants were silent. Girls I'd been friendly with during preliminaries suddenly stopped responding to my messages. One girl I'd considered a friend posted something vague about integrity and pageantry. That felt like a knife in my back. I tried to defend myself on social media, but it was like trying to hold back a flood with my bare hands. For every fact I posted, there were 100 lies to counter it. People who'd never even heard of me a week ago were suddenly experts on my life, my family, my history. The stress started showing. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie awake scrolling through the comments, reading every cruel word, every accusation, every demand that I drop out. I stopped eating. My mother would make my favorite foods and I'd push them around my plate. My stomach is in knots. I stopped going to the gym where I'd been training, stopped rehearsing my walk, stopped everything. Mama Rose's shop became my refuge. But even there, I could see the worry in everyone's eyes. The women who used to joke with me and tell me stories now looked at me with pity. Pity felt worse than hate. My father tried to shield me from the worst of it, but I saw him on his laptop late at night, reading the threads, his jaw clenched. My mother, who was always so strong, cried in the kitchen when she thought I couldn't hear. The Miss Georgia organization called me in for a meeting. I sat across from 3 women who smiled politely but didn't meet my eyes. They asked me questions I'd already answered. They asked for documents I'd already provided. They asked me to understand their position and how they needed to protect the integrity of the competition. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why they weren't protecting me. Why were they giving oxygen to lies? Why were they treating me like I was guilty of something? Instead, I sat there with my hands folded, answering every question, providing every document, being respectful and composed even as I felt myself breaking inside. A week before the competition, a news outlet ran a story. Miss Georgia contestant under fire, questions about eligibility persist. The article was careful, using words like alleged and claimed, but the damage was done. It legitimized the lies, made them seem like valid concerns instead of what they were. Attacks meant to disqualify me without cause. The comments on the article were brutal. Mixed in with the hate were people trying to defend me, but they were drowned out. Someone found out where Mama Rose's shop was and started leaving 1-star reviews, calling it a business run by people who raise liars. That broke something in me. They could come after me. But they were coming after my grandmother now. They were coming after my family's livelihood. They were coming after everything I loved. I called an emergency meeting with my parents and Mama Rose. I sat at her kitchen table. The same table where I'd done homework as a kid, where I'd eaten countless meals, where I'd cried about boys and celebrated getting into college. "I need to withdraw," I said. The words felt like giving up, like letting them win, but I couldn't let my family suffer for my dreams. My mother started to protest, but my father put his hand on hers. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Aaliyah," he said, "we will support whatever you decide. But I need you to know something. Withdrawing won't make them stop. These people don't want you to just step away from Miss Georgia. They want you to disappear, to be silent, to accept that you don't belong anywhere." Mama Rose reached across the table and took my hand. "Baby girl, do you remember what I told you when you were little? About the crown they tried to take from me?" I nodded. "I never told you the whole story," she said. "I won Miss Bronze Atlanta in 1968. I was 19, and I was the first dark-skinned girl to ever win that title. They tried everything to take it from me. Said my entry fee check had bounced. It hadn't. Said I'd broken rules I'd never broken. Called me names I won't repeat. And you know what I did?" I shook my head. "I walked away," she said quietly. "I gave them back the crown because I was tired and scared, and I couldn't fight anymore. And Aaliyah, I've regretted it every single day of my life. Not because of the crown, but because I let them tell me I didn't deserve to be there." She squeezed my hand. "If you want to withdraw because you're done with pageants, done with this world, done with the fight, I will support you. But if you're withdrawing because you think you're protecting us, baby, we've been fighting our whole lives. This is just one more round." I cried then. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from deep in your chest, from a place that's been holding too much for too long. But even as I cried, I knew what I had to do. 3 days before the Miss Georgia competition, I posted a video. I, sitting in Mama Rose's shop after hours. No makeup, hair in a simple bun, wearing one of my father's old Morehouse t-shirts. "My name is Aaliyah Monroe," I said to the camera. "I was born in Atlanta, Georgia on August 15, 2001. I am Black, I am Latina. My father is from New Orleans. My mother is from the Dominican Republic. I am all of these things, and I am not confused about who I am. But it's become clear that my participation in Miss Georgia has become a distraction from what this competition should be about. So today, I'm officially withdrawing as a contestant." I paused, swallowing hard. But I want to be clear about something. I'm not withdrawing because the accusations against me are true. They're not. I'm withdrawing because I refuse to participate in a system that won't defend the truth. I'm withdrawing because I won't let my family's businesses and reputation be destroyed by lies. And I'm withdrawing because I've learned something important. You can't win a game where the rules change every time you get close to victory. I looked directly into the camera. To every girl out there who's been told she doesn't belong, who's been told she's too much or not enough, who's been told to just sit down and be quiet, I see you. And this isn't over. I posted the video and turned off my phone. The crown I'd dreamed of for years was gone. Miss Georgia happened without me. A girl with blonde hair and a perfect smile won. And when they asked her about me in an interview, she said, "I just want to focus on moving forward." I felt like I'd lost everything. But then 2 weeks after Miss Georgia, I got a phone call that would change everything. The weeks after my withdrawal were the darkest of my life. I moved through my days like I was underwater. Everything felt slow and heavy and hard to breathe through. I'd wake up and for a second forget what had happened. And then reality would crash back in and I'd want to pull the covers over my head and disappear. My phone was still off. I couldn't face social media. Couldn't face the comments that I knew were still out there. My parents and Mama Rose tried to get me to eat, to go outside, to do anything, but I felt paralyzed. The worst part wasn't the online hate. I could almost handle that. I could tell myself those people didn't know me, that they were strangers hiding behind screens. The worst part was the silence from people I thought I knew. Girls I'd competed with in smaller pageants over the years. Girls I congratulated them when they won. Girls I'd given pep talks to in dressing rooms. Girls I'd considered friends. They all went silent. No texts, no calls. No, "I'm sorry this happened to you." Nothing. My college friends were better, but even they didn't fully understand. They'd say things like, just forget about it. Or you're better off without pageants anyway. Or maybe this is a sign to do something else. They meant well, but they didn't get it. This wasn't just about losing a competition. It was about being told, publicly and cruelly, that I didn't belong in the state where I was born. I started having panic attacks. The first one hit me in the cereal aisle at Kroger. I was just standing there, staring at boxes of Cheerios, when suddenly my heart started racing and I couldn't catch my breath and the fluorescent lights felt too bright and I had to abandon my cart and sit in my car for 20 minutes just trying to breathe. After that, I stopped going out much. I called in sick to work so many times that they gently suggested I take a leave of absence. I stopped going to Mama Rose's shop because I couldn't stand the way people looked at me. Like I was broken. Like I was something to be pitied. My mother was worried. She'd sit on my bed at night, stroking my hair like she did when I was little, speaking to me in Spanish the way she always did when things were serious. Mi amor, you have to get up. You have to keep living. They don't get to take your life from you. But it felt like they already had. The bills started piling up. I'd spent thousands of dollars preparing for Miss Georgia. Gowns, coaching, headshots, travel for preliminaries, and entry fees. Money I'd saved for years. Money I'd never get back. And now with no job, I was drowning financially on top of everything else. I considered selling the gowns, but I couldn't bring myself to open the garment bags. They hung in my closet like ghosts of a dream that died. My father tried a different approach. One day he came into my room and sat down without saying anything. Just sat there. Finally, he spoke. You know what they used to tell me growing up in New Orleans? They'd say, Marcus, you're smart, but don't get too smart. You're ambitious, but don't reach too high. Know your place, and you know what I hated most about that? They made it sound like they were protecting me, like they were giving me wisdom, but really they were just trying to keep me small. He looked at me. That's what they did to you, Aaliyah. They dressed it up as protecting the competition, maintaining standards, asking legitimate questions, but really they were just trying to keep you small. And baby girl, I know you're hurt right now. I know you're tired, but I didn't raise you to stay small. I wanted his words to inspire me, but they just made me angry. What do you want me to do, Dad? They won. They got what they wanted. I'm out. It's over. It's only over if you decide it's over, he said quietly. But I had decided. I was done with pageants. Done with putting myself out there just to be torn apart. Done with fighting for spaces that clearly didn't want me. Then, on a Tuesday morning in late June, my phone, which I'd finally turned back on, rang with a number I didn't recognize. Louisiana area code. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Is this Aaliyah Monroe? A warm, professional voice asked. Yes, I said cautiously. Aaliyah, my name is Jennifer Boudreau, and I'm the executive director of the Miss Louisiana organization. I've been following your story, and I'd like to talk to you about something. Do you have a few minutes? My heart started pounding. I didn't know if this was good or bad, but it was something. Yes, I have time. First, I want to say that what happened to you in Georgia was wrong. The way you were treated was unacceptable. And as someone who's been in the pageant world for 30 years, I was appalled. You deserved better. I didn't know what to say. Someone in the pageant world was actually acknowledging it. Now, I've done my research, she continued. Your father is from Louisiana, correct? Born and raised in New Orleans? Yes, I said slowly. And you visited Louisiana regularly throughout your life? You have family there? Yes. My dad's whole family is there. We visit several times a year. I spent summers there as a kid. Then, according to Miss Louisiana's residency requirements, you're eligible to compete for our title. Your father's Louisiana roots, combined with your regular presence in the state, qualify you. Aaliyah, I'd like to formally invite you to compete for Miss Louisiana 2024. I sat down on my bed, stunned. You want me to compete? We'd be honored to have you compete. Our preliminary competition is in 3 weeks. I know that's not much time, but I've seen your preparation for Georgia. I know you're ready. The question is, are you willing to try again? I should have said yes immediately. This was a second chance. This was redemption. This was everything I'd thought I'd lost. But all I felt was fear. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. But Aaliyah, I hope you say yes. We need women like you in pageantry. Women who don't fit into neat boxes. Women who challenge people to expand their definition of what beauty and grace look like. Louisiana would be lucky to have you represent us. We hung up, and I sat there holding my phone. My mind is racing. 3 weeks. That was all the time I'd have to prepare. To get back in shape. To remember how to walk in heels without my knees shaking. To face cameras and judges and audiences again after being publicly humiliated. Could I do it? Did I even want to? I walked downstairs where my parents and Mama Rose were having coffee in the kitchen. They looked up when I entered, and I could see the question in their eyes. That was Miss Louisiana, I said. They want me to compete. My mother gasped. My father stood up. Mama Rose just smiled, slow and knowing. What did you tell them? My father asked. I said I'd think about it. What's there to think about? My mother said. Her accent is getting thicker with emotion. This is your chance, mija. This is God opening a door. But what if the same thing happens again? I said. And I hated how small my voice sounded. What if I go through all of this, put myself out there again, and they just tear me apart again? I don't know if I can survive that twice. Mama Rose walked over and cupped my face in her hands, the way she'd done 1,000 times before. Baby girl, let me tell you something about survival. I survived Jim Crow. Your father's family survived Hurricane Katrina. Your mother survived leaving everything she knew to come to a country that didn't always want her. You come from survivors. And survivors don't just survive. They find ways to bloom in the concrete. But I'm scared, I whispered. Good, she said. If you weren't scared, it wouldn't mean anything. You think I wasn't scared every day I opened my shop in a neighborhood where nobody thought a Black woman could run a successful business? You think your mother wasn't scared when she got on that plane with nothing but a suitcase and a dream? Fear is just proof that you're about to do something brave. My father came over and put his hand on my shoulder. Aaliyah, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this. You will regret the things you didn't try far more than the things you tried and failed at. And baby girl, you didn't fail. They failed you. There's a difference. I looked at the three of them. 3 generations of people who'd fought their whole lives just to exist, to thrive, to claim space in a world that kept trying to push them to the margins. Okay, I said, I'll do it. My mother squealed and hugged me. My father grinned. And Mama Rose just nodded, like she'd known all along what I'd decide. But as they celebrated, I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to get ready to step back into the arena that had nearly destroyed me. 3 weeks to decide if I was brave enough to fight for a crown again. I went back upstairs and opened my closet. The garment bags hung there, white and pristine. I unzipped one and pulled out my evening gown, a deep emerald green that made my skin glow, that I'd chosen because it reminded me of my father's eyes. I held it up to myself in the mirror. The girl looking back at me was different than the girl who'd first put on this dress. She had shadows under her eyes. She'd lost weight, and not in a good way. She looked tired, but she was still standing. I pulled out my phone and found Jennifer's number. Before I could overthink it, I called her back. Jennifer? It's Aaliyah. I'm in. Let's do this. The next 3 weeks were going to be hell. But maybe, just maybe, on the other side of hell was something worth fighting for. The drive from Atlanta to Baton Rouge took 8 hours. My father drove. My mother is in the passenger seat. Me in the back with Mama Rose. None of us talked much. We were all lost in our own thoughts, our own fears, our own hopes. Louisiana in July felt like breathing through a wet blanket. Thick, humid, heavy, but there was something about it that felt right. This was my father's home. This was where his story started. Where my story started in a way, even if I wasn't born here. The preliminary competition was at the Raising Cane's River Center in Baton Rouge. When we pulled up, I felt my stomach flip. This was real. This was happening. Jennifer met us at the hotel. She was in her 50s, black, with silver hair she wore in a natural style and a warm smile that reached her eyes. She hugged me like she'd known me my whole life. "Welcome home," she said. And something about the way she said it made my eyes water. The 3 weeks of preparation had been brutal. I'd worked with a new coach, a woman named Sharon who'd competed in Miss USA in the 90s. She didn't baby me. She pushed me hard, remade my walk, helped me refine my platform. I practiced interview questions until I could answer them in my sleep. But more than the physical preparation, she worked on my mind. The crown isn't just about beauty, she told me. It's about presence. It's about walking into a room and owning your story. Every part of it. The good, the bad, the complicated. You stop apologizing for existing and you start celebrating it. There were 23 contestants for Miss Louisiana. I was the oldest, which in pageant terms meant I was ancient. Most of the other girls were 19, 20, fresh-faced and nervous in the best way. They knew who I was. Of course they did. My story had gone viral, had been picked up by national news. Some of the girls were friendly, cautious but kind. Others kept their distance, like I was contagious with controversy. I didn't care. I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to prove something. To myself more than anyone else. The preliminary competition had 3 components: interview, talent, and evening gown. No swimsuit, which was fine by me. The interview was first. I sat across from 5 judges in a hotel conference room. They asked me about my platform, about my background, about my goals. And then the question I knew was coming. "Aaliyah, you've had a difficult few months. How has that experience shaped your perspective on what it means to represent Louisiana?" I took a breath. I won't lie. What happened in Georgia broke something in me. I felt unwanted, unworthy, like I'd been told I didn't deserve to dream. But then I thought about my father, who's from here, from New Orleans. I thought about how his family lost everything in Katrina and rebuilt. I thought about how Louisiana has always been a place where cultures collide and create something beautiful. Creole, Cajun, Black, French, and Spanish, all mixed together into something uniquely Louisiana. And I realized that's who I am. I'm not one thing. I'm all things. And Louisiana, more than anywhere else, understands that. So, representing the state wouldn't just be an honor. It would be coming home to a place that celebrates exactly what I am. One of the judges, an older Black man, smiled at me with tears in his eyes. Talent was next. I'd agonized over what to do. I could dance. I'd been on step teams and dance teams my whole life. But I wanted to do something that told my story. So I did a spoken word piece I'd written. It was called Daughter of Two Rivers, the Mississippi that runs through New Orleans and Louisiana, and the Chattahoochee that runs through Atlanta and Georgia. I talked about identity, about belonging, about what it means to carry multiple homes in your heart. When I finished, the audience was silent for a beat, and then they erupted. Standing ovation. I walked off stage shaking, tears streaming down my face. The evening gown was last. I wore that emerald green dress, and I walked like I owned that stage, like I was born to be there. Like every cruel comment, every lie, every moment of doubt had been preparing me for this exact moment. When preliminary scores were announced that night, I placed first in the interview, second in talent, and third in an evening gown. I was going to the finals. I called Mama Rose from my hotel room. "I'm going to finals," I told her. "Baby girl," she said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you I could burst. Now go show them what a Monroe woman can do." Finals night was electric. The theater was packed. My family was in the 3rd row again. Same spots as when I'd imagined winning Miss Georgia. But this time, something felt different. This time I wasn't just competing. I was claiming something that had always been mine. The final question round came. Top 5. I made it. Then the top 3. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The final question. If you could say something to young girls who feel like they don't fit in anywhere, what would you tell them? I stepped to the microphone. I thought about every girl like me, every mixed kid who'd been asked, "What are you?" like they were a puzzle to solve. Every girl who'd been told she was too much or not enough. Every person who'd ever felt like they were standing between worlds instead of embracing them. I'd tell them that not fitting into someone else's box doesn't mean you're broken, I said. It means you're the box maker. You're the one who gets to define what you are, who you are, how you move through this world. And I'd tell them that the people who try to limit you, they're scared of your power. Because when you embrace every part of yourself, the parts that don't match, the parts that contradict, the parts that confuse people, you become unstoppable. You become exactly who you were meant to be. The audience roared. When they called my name as Miss Louisiana 2024, I didn't cry. I smiled. A real smile that came from somewhere deep and unbreakable. I walked forward. And as they placed the crown on my head, I thought about Mama Rose's crown from 1968. The one she gave back. The one she regretted. This one was staying with me. The runner-up hugged me genuinely, tears in her eyes. "You deserved this," she whispered. And I believed her. When I got my moment to walk as the new Miss Louisiana, I walked like I was carrying every girl who'd ever been told she didn't belong. I walked like I was carrying Mama Rose. I walked like I was carrying my mother, who'd left her whole world to build a new one. I walked like I was carrying my father, who'd rebuilt after Katrina took everything. And I walked like I was finally enough. Backstage, my family mobbed me. My mother was sobbing, my father was shouting. And Mama Rose just held my face and said, "Now that's how you wear a crown." Jennifer found me in the chaos. "Aaliyah, you have about 2 months to prepare for Miss USA. And let me tell you something. You're going to shake up that whole competition. You ready?" Was I ready? 2 months ago, I was broken on my bedroom floor. Now I was Miss Louisiana, heading to Miss USA. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." But as the excitement settled and I sat in my hotel room that night, crown on the dresser catching the lamplight, I realized something. The win was sweet. But sweeter than the win was the fact that I'd gotten back up. That I'd faced the thing that broke me and I'd survived it. That I'd proven to myself that I could take the hit and keep standing. Georgia had tried to tell me I didn't belong anywhere. Louisiana had just told me I belonged everywhere. Miss USA was in August, in Las Vegas. 2 months of preparation that felt like 2 years. Training, interviews, appearances, sponsors, press. The story of the girl who was rejected by Georgia and crowned by Louisiana had caught fire. News outlets wanted interviews. Social media was split. Some people celebrated me. Others doubled down on their hate. I learned to ignore the noise, to focus on what mattered. The Miss USA competition was a whole different level. 51 contestants, one from each state plus DC, the best of the best. Girls who'd been training their whole lives for this moment. And me, the girl who almost gave up. The preliminary competitions were fierce. Evening gown, swimsuit, interview. I held my own. But I wasn't sure it was enough. These girls were polished, perfect. They knew how to work a room, how to charm judges, how to make everything look effortless. But I had something they didn't. I had a story that had been tested by fire. I had a reason for being there that went beyond the crown. When they announced the top 15 and my name was called, I felt my knees almost give out. I'd made it past the first cut. Top 10. My name was called again. I was shaking. Top 5. When they said Miss Louisiana, I thought I'd heard wrong. But no, I was standing there with 4 other women, all of us holding hands. All of us are trying not to pass out. The question round, they asked me about my platform, about representation, about what I'd do as Miss USA. I spoke from my heart about girls who don't see themselves reflected in the media, in pageants, in positions of power. Representation isn't just about seeing someone who looks like you. It's about seeing someone whose story reminds you that your story matters too. When they announced the winners, everything moved in slow motion. Your first runner-up and Miss USA South Region. Miss Louisiana, Aaliyah Monroe. First runner-up, Miss USA South Region. I didn't win the big crown. But somehow, standing there with my regional title and my first runner-up sash, I felt like I'd won something bigger. Because 6 months ago, I'd been told I didn't belong in a state competition. Now I was standing on the Miss USA stage, representing a whole region, having proven that I belonged on the biggest stage in American pageantry. The winner was gracious, beautiful, deserving. We hugged, and she whispered, "You inspired me. Thank you for being here." After the competition, the social media response was overwhelming. Not just from people who looked like me, but from everyone. Girls with adoption stories, kids who'd moved around their whole lives and never felt rooted anywhere. People who'd been told they were too different, too complicated, too much. "You showed me it's okay to be all the things I am," one message said. "My daughter watched you and said, 'Mommy, she looks like she could be from anywhere.' And I said, 'Baby, that's her superpower.'" Another read. But the message that broke me came from a girl in Atlanta, a 14-year-old mixed-race girl who said, "I live in Georgia. I saw what they did to you. I thought if they don't want someone like you, they'll never want someone like me. But you didn't let them stop you. You found another way. You taught me that rejection from one place doesn't mean rejection from everywhere. Thank you for not giving up." When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at all those faces. Black faces, brown faces, young faces, old faces. Faces that held stories I'd never hear, struggles I'd never know, victories I'd never celebrate. But we were connected somehow. All of us, by the simple fact that we'd been told we didn't belong and we'd decided to prove them wrong. "I won't lie to you," I said. 6 months ago, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to be invisible because being visible had brought me so much pain. But then I realized something. Visibility isn't just about being seen, it's about making space for others to be seen too. When I wear this crown, I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing every girl who's been asked, "What are you?" Like she's a problem to solve instead of a person to celebrate. I'm representing everyone who's been told they don't belong because they're too much of one thing or not enough of another. And I'm here to tell you, we belong everywhere we choose to be. The applause was thunderous. After the event, kids lined up to take pictures with me. Little girls in princess dresses, boys who wanted to know if I could teach their sisters to be brave, teenagers who just wanted to say thank you. One little girl, maybe 7 years old, tugged on my dress. She was dark-skinned with tight curls and huge brown eyes. "Miss Louisiana," she said shyly. "My mommy is from Haiti and my daddy is from here. Sometimes kids at school say I talk funny. Do you think I can be a queen like you?" I knelt down to her level. "Baby girl, you already are a queen. You don't need a crown to prove it. You just need to remember that being different isn't a weakness. It's your superpower." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. That night, back at my apartment in Baton Rouge, I'd moved there officially, started working with the Miss Louisiana organization to mentor young girls, and I sat with my crown and my sash and thought about everything that had happened. I'd lost something in Georgia. That was true. But I'd gained something bigger in Louisiana. I'd gained myself back. The version of me that wasn't apologizing for existing. That wasn't trying to fit into boxes. That wasn't shrinking to make others comfortable. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, Aaliyah. You don't know me, but I was one of the contestants for Miss Georgia. I wanted to apologize. I stayed silent when you needed support. I was scared of being associated with the controversy. I watched you win Miss Louisiana. Watched you at Miss USA. And I've been ashamed of myself ever since. You deserved better from all of us. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to be angry. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But I remembered what Mama Rose had said. Survivors don't just survive. They bloom in the concrete. I texted back. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. I hope if you see it happening to someone else, you'll speak up. That's how we change things." She responded immediately. "I will. I promise." It wasn't justice, it wasn't vindication, but it was something. It was a crack in the system that had tried to break me. And cracks let light in. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago. The girl is planning to compete for Miss Georgia. So sure that was her path. If someone had told that girl what was coming, the rejection, the humiliation, the public dismantling of her dreams, she would have been terrified. But if someone had told her what would come after, the resilience, the victory, the crown that meant even more because of what it took to earn it, she would have been ready to fight. Sometimes the path you think you're supposed to take isn't the right one. Sometimes you have to lose your way to find it. I placed the crown on my dresser next to a photo of Mama Rose wearing her crown from 1968. 2 crowns, 56 years apart, representing the same fight. The fight to belong, the fight to exist fully, the fight to take up space. We'd both won, in the end, just in different ways. It's been 2 years since that night in Las Vegas. 2 years since I stood on that stage as Miss Louisiana, first runner-up at Miss USA, and Miss USA South Region. My year of service as Miss Louisiana changed me in ways I'm still discovering. I traveled to schools across the state, talking to young girls about identity and belonging. I worked with immigrant communities in Baton Rouge, helping families navigate the complicated feelings of being between cultures. I partnered with HBCU organizations, creating mentorship programs for students who felt caught between different parts of their identity. But more than any program or initiative, I listened. I listened to stories that sounded like mine but weren't mine. Stories of kids who were half Asian and half Black, of adoptees who didn't look like their families, of children of immigrants who felt guilty for losing their parents' language, of Indigenous kids trying to connect with heritage that had been stolen from them. And what I learned is this: the question, "Where are you from?" isn't really about geography. It's about belonging. And belonging isn't something you find in a place. It's something you build in yourself. My platform evolved. Crowns for All became a nonprofit organization. We offer scholarships to mixed identity youth, run workshops on cultural pride and self-advocacy, and create spaces where kids can be all of themselves without explanation or apology. Mama Rose passed away last year. She was 77. In her final weeks, when she could barely speak, she held my hand and whispered, "You finished what I started." I buried her with a photo of both of us in our crowns, 1968 and 2020-24, a legacy completed.